Welcome to the talk. My name is Mark Travis, and tonight I'm happy to show you all nearly 5 years of my work at Jerritt Canyon, structural modeling at Jerritt Canyon for near mine targeting and development. Many pictures, faces, or names could appear here. In fact, many brilliant geologists have called Jerritt Canyon home at one time or another. But seeing as I'm somewhat biased in this regard, I thought a picture that included my mentor Steve McMillan would be fitting. Also, you might recognize Don Colley or David Lowell. This was taken at the newly developed Zone 6 and SSX with an unassuming dike occupying the rib. Seriously though, many thanks to the numerous geologists that have come before me, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Tonight, I'll be going over the history and geology of the Jerritt Canyon District, introduce my ongoing structural modeling work, present some underground drift mapping from the soon-to-be-connected SSX Smith Connection Drift. I will present some recent geo-informed leapfrog models, and also look at Jerritt Canyon's future. For those that are unfamiliar with Jerritt Canyon, it is located 45 miles north of Elko along Mountain City Highway, situated within the Independence Mountains of northern Elko County. It was discovered as an antimony clay in '72, with first gold production in '81. Over its 40-year history, it has produced nearly 10 million ounces of gold. It is home to one of 3 roaster-type mills in Nevada, produces 2,200 ore tons per day from 2 underground mines. It has a land package close to 120 square miles, and current exploration efforts encompass both near mine and district-wide targets. Jerritt Canyon's history begins with FMC, or Food Machine Corp, as an antimony clay. Once Carlin-type gold mineralization was discovered on the property, Freeport JV'd with FMC, with first production in 1981. Independence Mining Company came along in the 90s, followed by Anglo Gold and Queen Stake. Queen Stake merged with Yukon Gold in 2007, and thus Yukon Gold Nevada was formed. Jerritt Canyon went inactive for several years from 2008 to 2011. In 2012, Ferris Gold was formed, but only several years later went bankrupt and were forced to sell at auction. Sprott Mining purchased Jerritt Canyon in 2015, and over the course of 6 years made some key improvements and sorely needed upgrades to the mill and mine site. And now it is owned by First Majestic Silver Corporation. This is your Place Your Pin Here map. Many in this room will recognize several, if not many, of these mine sites. Many of you have most likely worked at a number of them. I myself can count 6. But this wouldn't be a GSN talk if I didn't throw up some northwest trend lines. You might recognize this one as the Carlin trend, or this one is the Cortez Eureka trend. But what if we continued? How about the Kinsley Long Canyon trends, or the Highcroft Rochester trend? Or to change things up, how about some northeast lines? This one here has a name, the Crescent Valley Independence Lineament. What I'd like you to notice is that when these lines intersect, a lot of these pins tend to show up. Food for thought. This, incidentally, is the Independence Mountain where Jerritt Canyon resides. Hashtag trending. I think I'm doing that right. Here's a simpler location map of north central Nevada with Jerritt Canyon's address. Jerritt Canyon, Independence Mountains, Elko County, Nevada, with some easily recognizable towns, highways, and the I-80 corridor from Winnemucca to Wendover. Next is some more geologic arm waving in the form of deposits, troughs, lineaments, and thrust maps, where we can again see the CVIL as well as the easternmost extent of both the Roberts Mountain and Golconda thrusts. Here in this photo, taken by helicopter during Queenstake days, we can see the entire Independence Mountains as viewed from the southern tip looking north. First, we see Starvation Canyon, which has since this photo seen mining. Next, we see the highest point in the southern Independence Mountains, Wheeler Mountain. Further north is California Mountain, with SSX situated within the Patani Pit. Further north and west, we see the Legacy open pits, and furthest north is McAfee Peak, the tallest point in the Independence Mountains, located just south of Big Springs. Of note in this picture is the terrain and elevation that is encountered in the Jerritt Canyon District. You can even make out some of the exploration drill roads along the steep slopes of the flank of Wheeler Mountain. This district-scale simplified geologic map shows the antiformal north-south trending horse block that comprises the Independence Mountain's southern end. The continental slope and interbasin carbonates that make up the lower plate eastern facies rocks are the main host for gold mineralization, shown in blue. The western facies upper plate of the Roberts Mountain allochthon in brown cover the lower plate rocks, except within select windows or fensters throughout the district. Seen here is the Jerritt Canyon District tectonic stratigraphic column, with a more detailed breakdown of the local lithologic units. From the top down, we have the Valmy equivalent Snow Canyon Formation upper plate. Atop the lower plate, Roberts Mountain Formation, Hanson Creek Formation, and Eureka Quartzite. The main host rock in Jerritt Canyon are the Roberts Mountain and Hanson Creek formations. Of note is the Savaldis continuity, which is a paleokarst horizon between the Roberts Mountain and Hanson Creek formations. Also quite important are the dikes, with several dated and compositions to highlight within the oldest coming in at Pennsylvanian time post-antler orogeny, and the youngest Eocene in age. The district's structural setting is quite complex, with both compressional and extensional fabric with multiple iterations of both, spanning from the antler orogeny to basin and range faulting going on today. And here we see the northwest and northeast fabric yet again in the oldest dikes and northwest trending faults, along with the youngest dikes and northeast trending faults. Also of note is reverse reactivation, buttressing, and lateral motion that can be observed as well. For reference, turn to Jolly, Phillips, and DeWitt 2000 Symposium Proceedings. Therefore, mineralization can be described as complex structural strata and dikes yielding gold mineralization that is structurally and stratigraphically controlled at intersections of northeast and northwest oriented faults and along structurally influenced dike trends. When all these elements align, gold mineralization is observed. Near mine exploration has been successful along these magmatic structural corridors. Now, most of my work has centered on the current producing underground mines, SSX and Smith, shown here with a more detailed geologic map, Snow Canyon shown in olive brown, Roberts Mountain in blue, and Hanson Creek subunits in tan, brown, terracotta, and gray. Of note is where the underground mines are located in relation to the lower plate rocks. These both were blind targets explored for at depth under upper plate rocks. First, I isolated the primary first-order faults expressed on the surface geology. Second, I utilized the surface and underground dike trend data to create these dike trends. And as one can see with both the faults and dikes expressed in 2D in relation to the underground workings, in teal, we can already see some spatial relationships. But ultimately, all of this work up to this point is still in the 2D world. Now focusing on the SSX area, we can cut a long section here. And using the available data, I was able to generate conceptual fault and dike placement. Again, this is all still in 2D. But I'm not the first to have a go at this. Here's the same long section from 2006, and again in 2003. And here, with current 3D fault triangulations along that same long section. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What goes into a good model? As they say, bad data in, bad data out. So first, data quality is very important. Second, good subsurface modeling starts with the surface geology. Third, good quality and high-res formation surfaces are a key ingredient to actually tracing the surface feature at depth. Also, beginning with first-order large-scale Horst-Graben defining features need to be modeled first, as well as any through-going features such as cross-cutting dikes. And then ultimately you can focus on solving the puzzle of more perplexing offset and reverse or lateral motion features that can be hard to follow at first. And lastly, a good model needs to be continually challenged by ground truthing, or actually mapping these features in the underground whenever possible. So first, we see SSX and Smith with the surface geology. Here is the Geologist continuity formation surface. Notice the relative density of drilling that defines this surface. Isolate the first order faults. Generate the subsurface expression of those features and peel off the surface, and voila. And here is my first video showing how these look in 3 dimensions. These are just the first order faults running down through and how they intersect with the subsurface features. And again with the dikes, isolate the surface expressions of the dikes, bring in the subsurface drilling data, generate the subsurface dike features, peel off the top, and there you have it. Most of these dikes are pretty much trending almost always to 70 as an azimuth, and point towards potentially the Tuscarora caldera as a heat source, should we undo all of the basin and range extension. And just to have a view of how complex everything and all the modeling, when it comes together, can look at a slice view. After generating all of the 3D faults and dikes, the model needs to be tested. And here at Jerritt Canyon, I have a great resource for that, the underground environment. I view mapping like logging the inside of a 15-foot by 15-foot drill hole. Very expensive drill hole at that for sure, so why not treat it thusly? The underground drift gives you a 360 view of the geology. You can map lithology, alteration, mineralization in detail, gather structure, breccia, gouge, strike, and dip readings, all while interpreting the geology at the drift scale. Here I'll be highlighting some key mapping within the SSX Smith connection drift, showing where the model has been tested, ground truthed against reality. Here I was able to capture some fault information, as well as a cross-cutting dike coming through. Same dike on the next map coming around this corner, able to continue to follow the Hansen 3 formation through this corridor through here. Following out further, I came across the formation change and another major fault feature here as well. And further out, I was able to find another cross-cutting dike that also coincided with another horse graben defining fault feature in the drift. And coming out further, I was able to actually find the Sewall continuity contact itself, relatively low angle through this area, and pretty much bobbed and weaved up and down along the drift until I could find it at my datum point. I map to about hip level when I'm doing this sort of mapping. Here we can see where this mapping is along the connection drift. Now closer in this area, with the surface drilling, notice how sparse this drilling is in this area. This is one of the reasons why this mapping is so very important. Here are the modeled dikes through the area, some of which I found, some of which I didn't. And these other features are some of the through-going modeled faults, horse graben defining features, many of which I did find in the mapping process. These features were modeled at the 1,000-foot scale, and I mapped at the 20-foot scale. So any feature that falls within plus or minus 20 feet is pretty spot on to me. On to connecting the mines. These two mines started as two separate operations in opposite sides of the mountain, portaling into the sides of some open pits. Since the 90s, they have continually been mined as overhand cut and fill and long-hole stoping operations with CRF backfill. And for the majority of that time, they have been mined by a third-party contractor, SMD. Here we can see the original portals from SSX and Smith, nearly 4 miles apart, separated by the Independence Mountains. First, several zones of mining here, subsequent zones being mined, and more mining reaching further and further until current day, where they are only 660 feet from breaking through to each other. Exciting times for sure to be up at Jerritt Canyon. Given all this work to construct a 3D structural model, the First Majestic Resource Group was very keen on utilizing this data. They have been working zone by zone to update the resource model utilizing the 3D structural model, building domains with the geology in mind. The following is a very brief overview of some of their preliminary work using the 3D structural model. Here is SSX with the leapfrog low-grade and high-grade resource model. Zooming in, now with the structural modeling, the same long section as before. You can see how well the domain shapes adhere to the modeled geology. And here's a video to walk you through what it looks like in 3 dimensions. And a slice view from the top down, showing the complexity of the faults and dikes intersecting at depth at the mineralization and some of the historic drifting through the area. So what does the future hold for Jerritt Canyon? We plan to expand on current knowledge, moving from the known to the unknown. I will continue my structural modeling work at the district scale, continually update the model with new data and new interpretations, and assist with exploration as I'm able. Here's a similar view to the helicopter photo from the beginning, with surface geology draped over topography. Here's the fault modeling I've done at SSX, Smith, Murray, and Starvation underground mines. Some of the initial district-wide first-order faults, and the dikes. And one last spin through space. I've been able to do an extensive amount of structural modeling across the entire southern end of the Independence Mountains. Some more sparse features than others, but all can be used as pathfinders to find more mineralizations and pods along trend. It's important to note that there's so much of this area that hasn't truly been explored at depth. Historically, a lot of the drilling district-wide was limited to 300 to 500 feet in depth, looking for open pit targets. So in a lot of ways, there's still a lot of open ground for deeper targets to be tested. So in conclusion, previous work was done on a mine-to-mine focus. All of this is connected and related to each other. These faults are more easily identified using the formation surfaces that show pinching and swelling of the lithologic unit when viewed in cross-section. And the modeling can connect the dots on the district scale as well, not just near mine. And as always, it is a work in progress and requires testing and updating. Thank you for coming to the talk, and as this is a recording, you won't be able to ask any questions, but please get a hold of me if you do actually want to discuss anything presented in this talk. Thank you.